Hello, everyone. Today we are here with a guest. I don't know if he'll be speaking, but he's our model. Anyways, hi, everybody. It is the Quynh show, or the Halley Quynh show. And today our topic is how your love life reflects with your career path. Yes, very juicy subject. And for those of you guys who's never seen us before, I'm Quynh. This is lovely Halley. And we've been jumping on live every single week for quite some time now. I would say over a year now. It's been over a year.
On the weekly.
It's amazing. On the weekly. And we cover topics, anything to do with like healing, growth, transformation, self-love. So here we are with this topic. Such a juicy one. We were reflecting, and something came up for me, a really interesting conversation that I was having with a client, and some similarities with your client as well. And hands down, how would I say it? How we handle something, for an example, in our love life. Oh yeah, I was supposed to plug this in. But yeah, how we handle things in our love life in particular, would you say that could reflect on our work life?
Completely.
Things that we allow, things that we don't allow, but I would say more of things that we allow.
Yeah,
and
even just like our approach.
Yeah.
I'm thinking now about my own self in
Yes,
this.
yes.
And like my approach to both of those things are so similar, you know?
Okay. Like in what way? In what way? Let's open up this discussion. Yeah.
Like, I feel like with both of my love life and I guess like especially so like with my purpose. I'm like doing my thing, doing my work, but I'm not like that much like putting it out into the world. And in the same way with like my love life, I'm like doing myself, doing my work, but I'm not like putting myself out there, you know? And not that that's not like that's wrong or bad. Or I guess the other thing is that I kind of like will work behind the scenes for a while. Work on a project, create, build, and then be like, poof, and then like give it to the world, you know? And I feel the same with love. Like I'll just like be in my zone, doing my thing, like privately. And like doing my healing and like getting my routines and like processing and moving through things. And then there comes times when I'm like in the world in these like blasts, and then I'll like pull back and go back in. So yeah,
really awesome.
it's similar.
Yes. So this topic is to really help you reflect on something that you allow in your life that's not good, like that's negative, and how that's showing up in your relationships with other people, and then also at work. So, you know, with my client today, how would I say it? I mean, we've all had some sort of relationship, whether it's with you and your parents, or you and with a significant other, or you with your sibling, that is either abusive. Whether the language is abusive, there was physical abuse, and I'm thinking about mine now, where there was definitely some of that going on, especially my first relationship. And since we're talking about that, I'm remembering how my parents disciplined me, and a lot of it was from my dad, you know, but there was a lot of like yelling if I did something wrong. There was a lot of like whooping my ass basically, or like smacking, I get the smack when I did something wrong. And then it's just so crazy that I ended up in a relationship that was even like more abusive, where I was in constant contact with this person because it was my boyfriend at that time, where unfortunately I accepted the physical abuse. I accepted the verbal and emotional abuse. And actually, this is kind of trippy as we're like talking, like bringing this, because we're talking about our clients, but then now we're talking about ourselves. And so I'm like, and it's crazy because the jobs that I end up getting, there's two that stands out, and they were owned, the owners or the boss was male, and I've had two of them yell at me in a way that was very hurtful and direct and just mean. But I stayed in those jobs. That wasn't my deal breaker. But when you hear a friend express this too, you're like, girl, you need to get out of there. So it's kind of trippy. Like, why do we put up with abuse in a form of language or physical abuse? Right? And I'm even thinking about the ways that we get taken advantage of, like when you know it, but then you stay. Like you feel it, but then you stay. Mm-hmm. So there's something about the way that we haven't stood up ourselves or even identified what would be the deal breakers. So that's where the conversation went. We're like, what would be the deal breakers? And are we having that established before we go into a relationship or a career that is proposing a long-term commitment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. And so it's this trifecta. It's like what you became exposed to in childhood, what you were exposed to in childhood, which created a blueprint for what's for some kind of normal for you, even if it's not good or not healthy or not comfortable, it's still imprinted in you. So if you have that imprint, when it shows up in other areas of your life, the two other most major areas being purpose and love, it's something that you're able and willing to accept because it's in your range of normal, right?
Yeah.
And so once you start to like break out of what your normal was and say like, no, enough, like that's not okay for me. Mm-hmm. Like this doesn't feel good. I don't feel respected here. I don't feel valued here. I need to go somewhere else. That's that really big, courageous healing work, you know, where you start to use your no and you start to break the lineage of and cycles and patterns of abuse, neglect, abandonment, harm, rejection, you know?
Yes, and this gets into talking about when you use your no, it's you establishing your healthy boundary and what would cross that line.
Yeah.
And we must talk about it. It's a need to talk about it because if we don't, then we're not aware, and so we can't take that and move forward in the next thing that we're getting involved with, you know, like knowing exactly what those are, like what you said, am I going to be appreciated here? If I don't, that's my mark to remove myself, make a career change, or gotta step out of the relationship or really speak up to see if there could be any real actual improvement.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think it's also like it's a journey. So you start from this place, like based on your own story and your own exposure in childhood. Yeah. You start at this place of like, say like you come from a place where you did experience a lot of abuse and or neglect. And so you kind of start to have your no and you're like, wait a minute, no, I'm not going to put up with that, right? And then, so you just gave yourself more value. So you just went like a little bit further. Yes. So then maybe the next person that you get into a relationship with, they're better than the last. They're a little bit kinder than the last, but they're still not really showing up, you know? So then you exercise your power and your no and you do the thing and maybe you stay for a while and you compromise yourself for a while and then you get more courage to be in, you know, be in your own, to hold your own value and your own power, and then you do it again, right? And so like every time you do that, you're giving yourself more of your self-worth, and then eventually you can really just be in a high self-worth, high value situation, both relationship wise and career wise, but it does take time to get there. As you're saying that, I'm like seeing my timeline with my romantic relationships where like the first one I was like, okay, the next time if this happens, like I get like screwed over or like cheating or something, like I'll definitely put my foot down and be like, no. And I end up kind of compromising that and like being in denial of like the red flags again. And it wasn't until I entered some sort of like positive community that I have, I started to get a little taste of self-worth and confidence because I was learning new skills, you know, and I was really feeling empowered in some ways. And so then I started to recognize the ways that I wasn't being a leader in my own life, and then finally doing the very, very hard thing of actually breaking it off. You know, and so yeah, definitely it's a long process to really seal in your deal breakers
and actually live by them.
Yeah.
Because we do so much compromising, and that totally reflects on our own self-worth and what we've been actually doing for ourselves, which reflects on what the yeses are and what are the nos are. Yeah.
Well, and
totally.
the really tricky thing about it is that we're going to be attracted to the things that reflect our blueprints unconsciously.
Totally.
So we're going to call back in.
Totally.
We're going to call back in the same behaviors that cause us pain again and again and again, because that's what feels like home, right?
Exactly.
It's what feels comfortable and familiar.
God, yes.
And so it takes a lot. It takes a lot to break patterns, you know? And everyone has their own little stuff that they just see over and over and over again, and have to keep facing and keep just saying, like, not this time. There's this great story. I don't know if you've heard this story, but it's like just like a little written kind of poetic thing. Mm-hmm. And it's like this woman is walking down the road, and there's a big hole in the road, and she falls into the hole.
Okay.
The next day, she's walking down the road. There's the big hole in the road, and she falls into the hole. The next day, she's walking down the road. She falls into the hole, but she realized that she was going to fall into the hole. The next day, she's walking down the road, and she decides to walk around the hole. The next day, she's walking toward the hole, and she chooses to take another path. And that's just kind of the way it goes. At first you're oblivious, you're unconscious. You're just in this hole, and you're like, how the fuck did I get here? And then you start to get wise to your patterns, and then you're like, oh, I'm going down this hole. I'm going into this hole. I know this hole. I've been down this hole, but I'm going to go into this hole because I don't have the strength to not yet. And you go into the hole with wisdom. And then you're like, I'm just not going to I'm going to kind of not go in the hole, but be around the hole, because it's a very tempting hole, but I'm not going all into the hole, and then eventually you're just not doing that hole anymore.
Oh my gosh, I'm thinking, what does the hole represent, and why are we falling into the hole? What does the hole have that we're just I'll step in it, I'll go in it? And I immediately what comes to my mind is something that's instant gratifying, because you're getting what you need in that hole. There's something about the hole that is comfortable, familiar, and also maybe giving you that instant hit of something worthiness. There's some sort of yummy. You've been using the word yummy, some yumminess in that hole, and then you realize, wait a minute though, this hole is not good.
No, because the price for that yumminess is expensive as fuck.
Oh yeah.
It
costs a lot.
It costs a lot. And you're like, I will have my boring evening. I will choose my boring evening. I will choose the bathtub over that yummy little short-term moment, and then weeks or months or upwards of years of how it can get if you get into an attachment with someone who isn't able to meet your needs. That can unravel. That can have a long time of unraveling.
Yes.
So
thank you for sharing that story. I'm so going to share that with my clients.
Yeah, it's good, right?
It's so good. And I love simple scenarios like this, because outside looking, you're why does that person keep on falling in the hole? Duh, why don't you go a different way? And then sometimes though, that person needs to be aware first, and then to kind of go around it. So what are the places in our lives that we're going around it?
Yeah.
Or what are the places that we're just constantly in that hole all the time?
Yeah.
And are we aware of it? So you can see these steps, and it could take years to finally realize that we're the ones choosing to step into the hole.
Yeah. Especially once you're stepping into the hole.
Yes.
Right? And that is the thing, when you're holding space for someone on their healing journey, so much of it, depending on the client and their story, is watching them step into that hole.
Yeah.
And having to be okay, I see you in that hole, you stepped into that hole, you have awareness that you're in the hole, and you are loved.
Yeah. That's so important, to not judge it, and especially not be surrounded with people who are judging it.
Yeah.
So holding the safe space, for sure.
Because you never, it just everyone's path is different, and everyone's journey takes a different amount of time, to unravel. Some people only need to be in that hole 1 or 2 times. Other people need to be in that hole 100 times.
Yes. Oh my gosh. For sure. And like, yeah, getting to the point where you're seeing what it will take to go around it.
Yeah.
Like you see it, but you're observing it. You're literally watching yourself go around it.
Yeah.
And then perhaps then you will witness yourself, wow, I can live my life without the hole. I don't need the hole
I don't
anymore.
even need to see the hole.
I don't even need to see the hole. I can just go on this other path where there's no holes there.
Holes on that path.
You guys, this is so symbolic. If you guys are not taking notes on this, I don't know what you're doing. Make sure you save this video. Make sure you like share it. This is so juicy in a fulfilling way. This is life right here. Mm-hmm. We've gotten used to being around in many holes.
Yeah,
it's become our lifestyle to have that hole and be in that hole. And
so back to the original topic.
Yeah,
it just might be interesting for those who are listening to really reflect on your love life, your romantic life, and what it looks like and the energy of it, or your romantic history if you don't have an active love life, and your career life, your purpose path, and just see if there are similarities and like what you're willing to put up with, how you're willing to be treated, how like where you feel in your power, where you don't feel in your power, and just start looking at those two things, because how we do one thing is how we do all things generally. And if one area is easier for you to empower in, then you can kind of focus there to like gain your strength, you know, and then bring that into the other areas of your life.
Yes, like all those questions right there, those can be your journal prompts and like reflective questions to really hone in on. If that's what you're seeking to go on this other path, and you need baby steps to get there. Love everything that you just said. That was it right there. So you guys, that ends it for our talk. That was so good. I don't know if you have anything else to add, but that was boom, 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 boom. So juicy, so good, you guys. And we're here to hold a safe space. Always, this is what we thrive on, holding safe spaces, because we need it too. Yeah. We're providing what we believe is missing in the world and what was missing in our lives. So if you have not liked the Self-Love Exodus page yet, like it. You will see what we're doing with our workshops every single month. Next month is Loving in the Darkness. Yeah, so that's for August. Oh, Loving in the Darkness. Oh, the darkness. The hole is dark.
The hole is the darkness.
Yes, you guys. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. So good. All right. So good, you guys. All right. We will see you next week on our talk, and we hope that you enjoyed it. And yeah, cheers to this journey. Cheers to sticking to it and doing our best to really grow from our experiences.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for being with us. Bye, guys.